Welcome to Redefining Medicine, an intimate and personalized program that illustrates a different side of the practice of medicine. Our in-depth conversations will focus on mentors and motivators who are consistently reshaping, redefining, and rediscovering the field of medical health care. I would like to welcome Dr. Pamela Hughes. Committed to the philosophy and practice of osteopathic medicine for over 20 years, Dr. Pamela Hughes is a firm advocate in preventative medicine, believing that each person has a unique footprint which must be addressed from a customized and personalized perspective. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Hughes.
Well, thank you for having me.
So let's go back to when little Pam was a child. And did you always have a love for the sciences? Did you know early on you wanted to be a physician?
I did. And when you say child, it hit me for certain in 8th grade. I always enjoyed medicine. I didn't mind going to the doctor, that kind of thing. But in 8th grade, I actually babysat for a physician. And I used to go to the office, and he had his child at the office. And I would help out there and then go in with the child at the home. But the point would be that in the office, I was fascinated by what he was doing. And in 8th grade, I was actually shadowing with him. He let me come shadow. And this is what I want to do. And I set sights in 8th grade that I'm going to be a physician. I had no idea what kind, but at some point I knew I wanted to take care of people and help people the way that he did. So, yeah.
That's great. So what made you decide to go the osteopathic route?
So I love their philosophy. The philosophy that the mind, the body, the spirit all come together, it's all connected. And the whole concept of structure and function to me is incredible because it works. It works. And when you put it into clinical practice, it works every day. And I like that whole idea that I'm getting more personal with someone and no knock on the MD world and the research world. We need that. But it was just more focus on digging into the clinical of a person. And that's what made me choose osteopathic school.
What brought you to South Florida?
So mountains versus water. The irony is my husband and I have lived in quite a few places, to include Hawaii, to include North Carolina, Tennessee, both Central and East Tennessee. Grew up in Pennsylvania. And when we were in Tennessee, we decided that we wanted to figure it out. And we chose water, which meant Southwest Florida. We chose Naples because of the safety. Honestly, we just like the calm peacefulness there. And hindsight, we missed the mountains, but we love the water. So I'm a big paddleboarder.
That's wonderful, and the Gulf is quite beautiful.
Right.
So I understand that you took over Dave Perlmutter's practice a couple of years ago. How did that come about?
Great story. We met in an organic clothing store. So I was there. I actually purchased some hats at the store, and when I was visiting Florida, we had not picked Naples yet. My husband and I came down here with an intent that we thought we might want to live in Naples. And on my last week in the vacation, I was there, and his daughter was there talking to the cashier about their dog being sick. And the cashier's like, "Oh no, you can't do that." And the long and short, the conversation ensued that I'm studying functional medicine and I'm looking to come and open a practice. And she's like, "You got to meet my dad." In comes David, and we start talking. 15, 20 minutes later, he's like, "Let's call each other, let's talk." And that led to us talking in further discussions that he was in a process, and our energy connected. And so we met several times, and then I started, shadowing with him and learning his ways. And, as he says, the Spirit, says God put it, he put us together. So that's the only way to describe it.
That's a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
So let's go back. How were you first introduced to A4M, and what happened in your life that caused you to go into the fellowship here?
Sure. So, I was definitely traditionally trained. Even though osteopathic, we still in medical school, I remember the day that the professor stood up there and told me that vitamins are just an expensive waste of urine. Expensive urine is the way he worded it, right? So that's just expensive urine. It stuck, and it always bothered me some, but the point is that was my training. And I, was doing emergency medicine at the time, so it was all traditional. And my husband, in 2008, was a Green Beret, Special Forces, and was blown up in Afghanistan. It was life-changing for both him and myself. The point being is that it led to us finding him in a hospital bed, initially paralyzed. He had some major injuries that led to him having to have multiple surgeries. And immediately, we're sitting at Walter Reed, and he's not walking, he's not functioning, and he's on so many drugs that he couldn't even think straight. And all that was happening was take more drugs. And I am not knocking the doctors. It's what we knew. It's what we knew. But I sat there and I'm like, there's got to be a better way. He can't even walk because he can't think straight. He can't even speak. So the long and short, we started getting him off the drugs, the morphine and the Valium and all this stuff as quick as possible. And I just started staying by his bedside 24/7. And that just moving him, manipulating the sheets, little details, just being there and the connection quickly helped. And then David's dad, actually, who is an electrician, by no trade medicine, has been feeding his son millet since he's been a baby. Wow. He's been very much into organic. He knew about non-GMOs before me. He asked me about mercury when I was in med school, mercury toxicity. I'm like, Terry, I don't know what you're talking about. It's kind of a funny story because I'm like, what are you talking about? That stuff's not real. Hindsight, it's very real. And the point is, Terry is like, hey, what about looking into this stuff? So I looked into some of these different supplements and different things that we can use. And quickly, we had him on a couple of supplements, and his pain was gone. He was feeling better. His mood was better. And before you knew it, I mean, it was a game changer. So with supplements, physical therapy, a good mindset, positive attitude, I mean, he was walking in 3 months and doing things that people didn't expect him to do. So I wouldn't call it a miracle because he's just a hard worker and a fighter. So I put all of it on David, for my husband, for doing what he did. But being there was incredible. So that piece led me to start searching, well, where's this stuff coming from? Why do I not know about this? How do I learn about it? And that's when I found A4M. And I looked at, there's a couple different pathways to choose, and I chose A4M for the science. I felt like, here's the heart of it. They've got the literature, they've got the support. In hindsight, I've done some of the other companies' courses and things like that, and it all comes back to, I get more details here and more science here, and I feel like I can take that back clinically and use that. So I have had great success once I've discovered A4M. One of my journeys in my career was I did do my training through the military. I did the Health Professions Scholarship Program and then went on and did residency at Triple Army Medical Center. I was a little blessed to have the beach as an out while I was doing my residency. But afterwards, I went and taught at Fort Bragg. And from there, while I was in the teaching program there, I actually deployed to Iraq and spent time in Baghdad and Tikrit. And while there, I would have to say that I was doing emergency medicine there, so trauma. It was eye-opening and game-changing. My first week there, I think I cried every day because I did not realize how much was going on and how deadly it was there. And I went when, quote, the war was over in '03, and it was really devastating. I learned, though, that it is an amazing team that was put together. The physicians and the staff and the nurses, everybody was amazing there, and they taught me so much when I was there. And what we did for patients there was actually pretty incredible. We really made a difference there. It definitely was a game changer for me, and it humbled me to come home and have just respect for the military and the soldiers and everybody and what they do day to day, because it's just hard. It's hard work, and so I don't know how much that led me into functional, but I think it also it softened your heart. You just realize these people are in foreign countries doing what they're doing, and some of the, I'll never forget one time when I had a man come in and at long and short, he was blown up and pretty bad injuries, and he starts asking for his wife, and lo and behold, his wife was with them, and she actually was upstairs and had died. And I'll never forget it, because what do you tell him, And so It's stuff like that, though, that makes you realize just thank the military for everything they do and who they are, and that stuff will stick with you forever, but it makes you better in the long run because you realize that life is precious. Just like when David was injured, it really changed my game to be, the details don't matter as much. I really learned to let go of a lot of details and realize what's important in life. And I would say if there's one take home, your family is your most important thing.
I want to get back to your husband for a second, but first let me ask you, when you finished the fellowship, or should I say when you first took your first course here at A4M, what was the first thing you implemented into your practice?
So the funniest thing is, though, when I took the course, I was still doing emergency medicine, and more recently I was going back through, I printed out all the talks and I took notes, and I was reading some of the things I was writing, and I was like, wow, I really didn't know anything back then. I was still in the ER at the time when I was doing the fellowship, and it was cute to be in the ER and talking to people about their vitamin D levels. And I think that was one of the first things I started implementing is vitamin D, because it was so simple to realize that so many people are vitamin D deficient, and the other one is magnesium. So I would say those were the first two things I started implementing in the ER.
Did your colleagues question what you were doing?
Oh, sure. Every day. But what's cute is as the year went on in the training and I'd come back with more and more stuff, they all started asking me questions. They would come, the nurses all wanted to know more. Everybody wanted to know more, and it became really interesting, and people were starting to read about it and study it on their own online and be curious about it. And one of the ER doctors did come in, and he's doing A4M now from when I was training where he was. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your husband again. How did you two meet?
So we actually met when I was a resident. I was doing the Military Health Professions Scholarship Program, and so I was at Tripler Army Medical Center at a rotation in family medicine, and he was the designated driver for his buddies coming to a nurse's party. He was an infantry officer at the time, and I was there via the residents invited me to the nurse's party. And we were the two at the time, and don't laugh, but drinking the Cokes. So hindsight, we don't do that anymore, but instead of the alcohol.
Right.
And it's, again, funny story, but we were in line to go to the bathroom, and we just started talking. And sure enough, before you know it, that was the entire conversation. But I actually went back to med school in Philly, and he stayed on in Hawaii. And this was before cell phones and before email. We were doing long-distance letters, handwritten letters, and we were doing phone bills. So it was a great way to get to know each other, though. So for 6 months, we actually went back and forth via phone and email, or phone and mail, snail mail, and fell in love. There you go.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And when you think about the fact that how he was brought up, and the fact that there was something organic in his life obviously God had a plan and brought you both together.
Absolutely. Part of the thing is that year David was recovering also was a big game changer for me, because that was the year that I actually started, I was always athletic, 3 hours in a gym, crazy fitness, and in that year I actually took off working out because I was with him. I was becoming nurse, wife, you know what I mean? And I gained 30 plus pounds in that year, and because I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating right, I wasn't, you know what I mean? So working shift work and not working out, and it all caught up. And that's been a battle ever since. I was always that 120 athlete. And so that's something that I still use A4M for. That I'm okay, I know why this happened, and I'm the epitome of what stress can do to your body. And so it's kind of fun to use that as an analogy. I can relate to people, and that's the other piece that makes what I do kind of fun now, because people sit there and they talk, and it's nice for them to get some confirmation that they're not alone. That you're not crazy, you're not silly. It's part of what happens to your body. So,
do you share your personal journey with your patients?
I pick and choose, but usually I do. It depends on the patient, and you have to get to know the dynamics. Most of them like hearing it. I have put it out there on my website, honest about not my personal journey with the weight and things, but my husband's story and how we came into the functional world. But with my patients, I do share it. if I feel it'll help them understand that, I'm with them. So I do, for sure.
It's such a bittersweet story, and thankfully has a very positive outcome on many levels, and thankfully your husband is doing quite well.
If you saw him now, you would never know what happened. But we also have done, I will say, going to my husband, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is a great thing. We have done 20 treatments. He's going to do 20 more. It's great for his nerves, his back, his brain. It's great.
And do you offer that service in your office?
I do. I have 3 chambers.
So what else have you implemented into your practice?
Hyperbaric oxygen, IV therapies. So we've implemented a lot of the nutritional therapies, as well as vitamin supplements, things like that. And then I'm trying to think if we have anything else going on in the office right now. Those are the 3 big, and a nutritionist, of course. So, and a nurse coach, so kind of like a health coach. But she's an RN coach, so yeah, we have those.
Who is your typical patient?
Do a lot of neurology just because of David Perlmutter and what he represents. He was a neurologist. I am not a neurologist by trade, and I'm open with people that I am not a neurologist. However, it's become a passion because it's what you start seeing a lot of. You start researching it more. So I have a very big variety between MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and then a lot of the basics, hormones, thyroid, want to lose weight, and then you get the chronically ill that have been everywhere. So I get a pretty big mix. I wouldn't say there's one. I guess neuro, I do a lot of neuro. I'm really getting into the cardiovascular and Alzheimer's prevention. I really enjoy that. And so I've taken some courses on the side even on that, just kind of trying to advance that. And I love implementing the prevention. I think that's one of my missions. People say, well, what's your mission? And I'm like, well, I think my dream is to eventually have enough time where I can start going into schools and really talking to parents about their kids. Because I feel like the heart of where things start is when we're, young. Even healthy kids we can do better. And, I think back to my days, and I bless my mom, I'm grateful for what I have, but dude, I was eating cookie dough for study breaks, and
we all were. Right.
Come on, and if I think back, man, have my grades, what would I have done, but, so if we could get that now, I definitely think it's more popular now, it's out there now, but I still think when you look at like my kid's school, I'm like, wow, there's so much, when you see these kids eating sugar for lunch and then they're hyper and they're getting on meds. It's like there's a reason. So I think that's my mission. At some point, I'll get there.
Well, it's funny and ironic, actually, because David Perlmutter and I chatted a few months back, and I left there wanting to go into major therapy because I'm basically to blame for my son's ADHD because of what I ate when I was pregnant.
Right.
So, it's not just from childhood, but it's in utero. Mm-hmm. So, which, it puts a whole different spin on what, everything that you're putting in your mouth.
Oh, so. I blame my son's carb addiction to my carb eating when I was pregnant.
Exactly. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So have you had any frustrations along the way when you made that transition from your ER medicine into your functional practice? Any regrets or any challenges that you had to overcome?
Well, sure. Taking on a business in and of itself is a new experience. I'm a physician. I do not have a master's in business. Right. And so that has been a little bit challenging to wear that hat. I'm reading some books on how to be a physician, run the business, and also be the entrepreneur. And it's pretty interesting how the 3 hats do not work together and how you have to separate them. That's been a growth process, and it's getting there. I still think there's a lot of room for improvement in different areas, and I think the struggle that I struggle with to this day is the time. Because you spend so much time with the patients and patient care that there's very little time for the other avenues, like getting out there into the schools. And so that's just always the challenge. I think also, for me, functionally, what I found very unique is seeing patients really strain your heart. Because you spend a lot of time with them and you get to know them. And I call it hard work because you as a physician, if you're doing functional medicine, you have a love for that patient. You care. And that caring actually is exhausting. And I'm learning how to ground that and balance that. And that's something that, learning that energy and feeling that energy is something that I've really been working with over the last 2 years, which is something I encourage all the doctors stepping into this to do, because it's definitely a different feel than the ER and the office where everything's go, go, go. You take your time and you learn, but you also find connections, and it tugs at you a little bit, and you give, because you want to. You want to make them better. You want to help them. And so my husband comes home, and I come home at night, and he's like, that's not fair. You got to save some for home.
But it has to be, if not the most rewarding part of your profession, certainly one of the most rewarding parts, to be able to establish that relationship and build that trust. And
see them get better is exciting. It is.
Can you share a story of a patient that you really made an impact for?
Though there's like...
We know your first patient was your husband.
Correct. Right. That was a great one. I think a few of them, just like a few that stand out with me are, there's like a couple of young ones. I had an MS patient come that was really struggling, had just done multiple rounds of steroids, was on Copaxone, on drugs, and just struggling and very symptomatic. And, after meeting her and talking to her, she flew in from Texas, and after meeting her and talking to her, we sat down and we started going through what can you do. And another patient from Texas referred her to me, and so it was kind of fun. So she kind of had a little idea, but she sat down and really heard it all. And in about 3 months, she was symptom-free. And the first time in years. And it brought you to tears, because it just gives you goosebumps, because you realize, like, wow, you can make a difference with just doing the things that we do in functional medicine. And there was no trick, no special thing. It was just the right foods, getting out the wrong things, like clearing toxins, clearing the liver, and getting some right supplements on board, and then lowering her stress, changing her lifestyle a little bit, getting her sleeping. It's a lot of fun, and that was very rewarding, because when she called and said, I'm symptom-free, and so that was exciting.
No steroids.
No steroids, exactly. And there was another one that's up in Boston, and she just told me that she went to a neurologist. The neurologist made a comment to her, well, this is the first time your exam is normal, and what are you doing? And she told him, diet, lifestyle, this, and this, and his comment was, yeah, I've had a few patients that have done that, and they do really well, but there's just not enough literature on that to back it up. And I was like, she's sitting there like, come on.
He just hasn't searched for it.
That's that mindset that, there's just not enough big study data on it. Well, that's where that whole N of 1, I even put that on my website, an N of 1, because I think that every individual is unique, and that N of 1 should be a designator. Like, as a physician, when someone would come and tell me something worked, that's amazing. I'm noting that because, hey, I need to start looking at that. Why did that work? And how could that apply to other people? And if you don't do that, then I sort of feel like you're not doing your patients a service if you don't take all things into account. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So how have these patients come to find you?
So a lot of what happens now is word of mouth, which is so exciting. I do have a website, but I don't do a ton of marketing, because as word of mouth gets out that they're getting better, it's getting exciting that they come. I mean, I have multiple patients from Texas, kind of cute, like, just because it got out. So this one town, like, they all come in. But then I do thank David Perlmutter for a lot of the success, because when he's out there speaking, they look and then they find me. And so I'm a nice alternative. And luckily, David's taught me quite a bit, so I know what David did and some of his regimens, if you will, and what his beliefs were. And so that's been a blessing. So I always thank David when I see him for that. But yeah, those are the big two ways. And I think in functional medicine, a lot of it's word of mouth once it starts getting out there. And then locally, there's just quite a few patients. But yeah.
So what have you implemented into your personal life? For you, for your children?
My big one is actually like, we eat all organic. If we occasionally go out non-GMO, we don't. But my son takes fish oil. My son takes we all take fish oil probiotics, vitamin D. My son just we take it like a multivitamin. I mean, that's a whole nother story where I could get into a whole nother level of the family. My son actually has Lyme. He got it 18 months ago or about 2 years ago now in Tennessee. And so the hindsight is at the time, my husband didn't tell me about it, which I love him. It's not his fault. He didn't know. And he pulled a tick out of his head. And long and short, my son started developing some symptoms and did some workup. And sure enough, he was CDC positive. And so that was kind of game changer because, okay, what do you do? He's 7. I got to do something. So I went and saw a Lyme expert and got some help. And really have evolved in the Lyme and mold and SIRS pathway because it does also affect me. So that's something I deal with. So it opened my eyes in that way, and implementing a lot of that into our home is what we've done too. So my son's actually being treated for Lyme currently. Wow. So yeah. So that's been an eye opener. That I don't know that I would have found if I wouldn't have found the people I found without having functional medicine and this amazing group of people. So yeah, and he's getting better. So we've been doing therapy 3 months now, and he's getting better. He has a lot of lymph nodes that are actually finally going away. So we're excited that, for the long term, he'll be in good shape. So,
thank God.
Yeah, and so
okay, you have brought me to tears twice now.
Yeah, but I mean, when it's your own son, it's one. It's definitely
it's a game changer.
It's a game changer, and all of a sudden, I always said I don't think I want to be a Lyme expert because it's just so hard. But all of a sudden, I'm finding myself really delving into the whole SIRS world, this chronic inflammatory response world, because it's real. And sitting here personally and being honest and open, I have SIRS. And trying to figure out why I actually have it probably relates back to growing up in Pennsylvania, Lyme, mold, so it's the whole concept that's become a mission, and you just grow with that. You just learn and learn and learn and learn, and then you start applying it, and you learn all of a sudden there's a lot of patients out there with it, and then they start finding out that you understand it, and then they start coming. So I'm slowly becoming more skilled in that, and I think A4M has really come a long way with that in the last few years too, really getting it out there. Andy Heyman and Sahar and Lavelle, they're all getting it out there. So, yeah.
But you didn't know that you needed to be, or your son needed to be a guinea pig for some of the newer practices.
No.
Right?
And so when you say what else have I implemented?
Are you gluten-free?
Oh, yeah. I'm gluten-free. My son is gluten-free. My son's the epitome of gluten. When he eats gluten, you can see the black eye circles the next day. So in the beginning, I had to show my husband. I'm like, look. So, and now David's all on board too. He's very organic. We all can tell when we don't eat organic. We all feel it. My husband and I definitely feel it the next day. And people say, well, if you just don't eat it, then no, once you're cleaned out of your system, your body feels the load. And once you start feeling that load, you realize you don't want that load. So the other thing is, for me, stress, how I handle stress.
How do you manage it all?
Well, it's interesting because I'm very type A. And
couldn't tell.
I know. And I look at my mom, and I love my mom dearly, but she's on overdrive 24/7. And I always say, I will not do that. I will learn to sit. I will learn to relax. So I actually will take time and do nothing. I call it just mind nothing. I really like building sandcastles. It's actually, when we moved to Naples, people say, oh, where do you live? I'm like, well, we actually live in a condo, but we bought it because it's on the beach. So we actually were able to get a really cheap deal on the beach. So I just can walk out to the beach and have that water. It's so therapeutic. It's amazing. And so I totally enjoy the fact that I can walk out my back door and walk down to the beach, And so, yeah, I build sandcastles. And when I'm down there doing that, I'm in another world. I think in another life I was an interior architect. I think I really get fascinated by the structure and the concepts. And so I think I was an architect in another life. But, yeah.
Speaking of which, if you weren't practicing medicine, what do you think you would be doing today?
That's a great question. I think I'd be an interior architect. So honestly, I think that I love architecture, and honestly, like I told my husband I want to build we built a house together, and he's like, I don't want to build that again. I'm like, I do. It was just fun. Like I loved it. The whole background of the builder, and that's always hard. But I just enjoyed the whole process of picking and building and shaping it and zen and making it all flow. And so, yeah, I think that's what I would do in another world. Yeah.
Have you had any regrets along your journey?
It's a great question. Regrets. I think you mean in medicine in general, or just? I think medicine in general. The hardest thing is the sacrifice to the family. And my husband and I have been married 19 years, and the regret I have, I think, is that sometimes I put too much focus on it, on medicine, and I'm trying to find the balance, and it's always finding the balance. But I think there's always a part of you that if you don't give it to the medicine, then you're not going to be good at what you do, and you have to find the balance. The balance is hard, and I think I struggle with it. And sometimes I think that I sacrifice my family to be better at medicine, sometimes to the point where it can hurt the family. And that's been a balance that I've been really working hard to find. And I've set boundaries now, and I'm getting better at boundaries in the office. So learning that has been a process. And I do now take time off with the boys, and I tell the staff, like, people are always like, why don't you open on Saturdays? Are you crazy? No, I'm never going to open on a Saturday ever. And I told my staff when I hired the staff I had, they're like, well, we have to work nights. I'm like, never. So I made a pact with myself that I would never work after, like, the office is closed by 5, and that I will not work on weekends. On Friday we close at 2. And some patients don't get it, but I have to find that commitment, because in emergency medicine, you don't have that. I mean, you're pretty much on the schedule of, the ER, and that's holidays, weekends, nights, days. And so that balance has been a pretty big goal setter for me. So that would be the
doesn't leave that much time for sandcastles on the beach.
No, it does not leave much time for sandcastles. And I think that's always going to be a struggle for me is, where do I see myself in 10 years? It really just depends.
Where do you hope that the future of medicine is going?
Oh, it has to change so that prevention becomes more realistic. The fact that I cannot get insurance companies to cover a vitamin D level if they don't have a diagnosis of a vitamin D deficiency is a little bit silly. Fatigue, things like that should be a reason that it's okay to get a vitamin D level. That needs to change. There needs to be more insight into prevention and how to prevent, not just your LDL's okay. No, what about that LDL? Is it working? Is it not working? Is it hurting you? Is it not hurting you? That's the piece of it that we need to be able to do, and we need to make it affordable for patients. And right now, insurance and the system is not affordable. It's not. So I hope I see functional medicine as the way of the future. It's getting there. It's starting to tap in, but hopefully in 10 years it'll be there, and insurance will cover it.
We can hope.
Right.
So for a physician who is teetering with the idea of crossing the line, so to speak, joining the crusade, coming to A4M to be a functional medicine integrative doctor, what would be the most important thing you think you could share with them?
Someone once told me that if you don't dive in, you'll never know. You just won't know. And what I mean by that is they were referencing seeing patients. Because I felt like I had to do more, like I had to do the whole fellowship before I saw a patient. I actually, hindsight, when I started seeing the patients, I was like, I didn't understand half that stuff because I wasn't seeing the patient. I would say as you start doing the fellowship, get some of the core underneath you, but then start seeing patients with it or start implementing it right away. Don't think you can't implement it because you don't know everything. That would be my one take-home point, would be to implement it earlier. I waited a long time. Again, I was that person that I had to have all the facts before I used any of it, and I wish I would have started implementing it more full-time sooner.
Do you think that the practitioner is able to start implementing once they just make that paradigm shift? Once they just get into that thought process of doing it differently, shouldn't they be able to just order that test or do it, as long as they're able to? Obviously, there's reimbursement issues and all that other stuff. But do you think that as far as the practitioner taking that leap, is it just that easy?
Yes and no, because you can hurt somebody. You can, if you just start supplements thinking that's okay or do that, it's okay. I would say you have to have enough knowledge that you're comfortable what supplements interact with what does what, before you jump into it. But that's where I think to try and do it without doing any courses, I don't think that's wise. I just feel like you can hurt people, and you can get a test and interpret it wrong and lead somebody down the wrong pathway. So I do think it's important to have something under your belt. Do you have to have the entire fellowship completed, take your oral boards? No. Do I think that some is going to be really important from some well-educated people? I do. I do.
Do you keep a bucket list? Your little sand pail?
So
overflowing with things you want to do?
Overflowing the bucket. You know, part of my bucket list is travel. So one of the things I did not really do that much growing up was travel. And so
only when you got married and you moved from place to place.
Correct. The irony is I've like lived in 13 different houses, 16 different houses now, I think. But travel, like actually just taking time and going to different places across the country and across the world. I'd someday like to do that for sure. So that's going to be on the bucket list, just traveling to different places. And you say, what's my favorite place? You know, I haven't really picked. I want to go to Australia and New Zealand. I would definitely want to spend some time in New Zealand. So that's going to be the first on my bucket list. So there you go.
Well, hopefully the next time we meet and talk, you'll have said you just came back from your amazing summer trip to, or in that case, winter trip probably, to Australia if you want the warmer weather.
Right. There you go.
So
and I guess they say what other bucket list. I've already jumped out of a plane, so I don't need to do that again. No, thank you.
Was that because you wanted to or a dare or something?
Actually, no, I did it when I was in the military. I was actually at Officer Basic Camp, and the friends were all going to do it, and I said, okay. And so I actually did, when we did it, it was they call it like a piggyback. So you actually had someone with you and you jump, and so it was pretty controlled. But it was amazing, but I don't need to do it again. No, it was good.
So I read that you were a college athlete, that you played volleyball?
I did. I played high school. I was at the end of this yearbook you get a name. I was the class jock. So yeah, I played volleyball, basketball, ran track, was all state volleyball in high school, and then went on and played it in college and was an outside hitter, so really enjoyed it. I always say I could jump back then. I call them my Bundy days here in the TV show. Sorry, I digress. But yeah, so it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
I'm sure. So is there a volleyball court on your beach behind your house?
No. You know what's funny is that when my sister comes down, she played volleyball. Whenever she comes to visit, I always make her go out and we pepper together and play.
That's fun.
But I have not swung a volleyball in a while just because my shoulder, over time, 4 years of swinging, I do have a little rotator cuff stuff that I take care of. So if I swing too much, I can really aggravate it. But I like to go play pepper, and someday I'll get back into it.
I hear that some PRP might help that.
Exactly. I'm on that. I'm working on the little stem cell PRP right now. Yeah, some PRP. Absolutely.
And there's a few doctors around here that might be able to help you as well.
Absolutely.
So tomorrow you'll be giving a talk, and so how do you hope to inspire your peers?
You know,
they can leave the room with just one message.
Use the functional method, like use what we know. So, I'm talking about sleep, and you can look at sleep from so many perspectives, and there's these 7 categories and breaking it down, and it doesn't all matter really. When it comes down to it, it's actually looking at the person, getting the whole story, and when you put the whole story together, you can usually figure out why they're not sleeping. And then if you can't, that's what you get sleep studies for. That's what you do some other stuff for. But that's what I'm going to try and hit home with. And I'm also going to touch a little bit on Alzheimer's and how to prevent, prevention in the workup. And what we realize is that what we do in functional medicine is really a way to prevent Alzheimer's and reverse mild cognitive decline. We do it, and we don't even know we do it. Like, they're preventing decline by actually treating hormones and treating thyroid and treating mold and Lyme, and doing what we do is actually everything I study on Alzheimer's. It's the treatment. It's like fixing the sugar, doing that stuff. But when you look at Alzheimer's, we already know how to work it up and treat it. People are like, I don't know how to figure out Alzheimer's or not. No, you already do. It's just putting it all into play.
So someone that's genetically predisposed?
APO4, sure. So absolutely. So the biggest thing is it's not a death sentence. What genes you have does not mean you will have that disease. Now, are you at increased risk? Absolutely. But what do you do about it? It's the lifestyle. It's the diet. It's making sure you get the other trophic factors in place, making sure you have good nutrition. So I have a couple ApoE. I have 3 4s, a couple 3-4 patients. I don't have a 4-4. I have 3 4s. But the point is that in our discussions, I tell them, I'm like, this is not a death sentence. This is not, but you've got to remember, you've got to handle your stress. You've got to do this. We've got to make sure they don't have infections. They've been looking at brains and of Alzheimer's patients, and they're finding candida in the brain. We know candida in our world. Candida's out there, and so it's something, even salmonella. Salmonella's in the brains, Lyme in the brain. We know that infection plays a role in Alzheimer's too. So it's delving at all the avenues, and functional medicine does it better than anyone.
Do you enjoy the teaching part of your profession?
So I love to teach. My joke is, and as I've told you, getting up in front of people is actually an exciting thing for me. When I first started doing speaking, I can remember the redness from my neck down, that whole red body. I've had that before. I've never passed out, but I can say I can give a talk and didn't remember a single word that I said. So that's one of those things that I'm working to overcome. But within teaching, small group teaching, I love it. Like, I thrive on educating and like teaching what I know. And I always tell people there's stuff a lot I don't know, but this is what I know. And I'm learning to also become good at knowing, okay, I don't know that, and that's okay. Learning what I do know.
It's so obvious sitting here. I mean, I can feel the passion that you have for this type of medicine and for helping others. And I can't help but, but think that your own personal journey with your husband, with your son, yourself, really, made you the physician that you are today. And I can't imagine having any regrets for what your family has gone through, just to bring you the knowledge that you have at this point in time, and to be able to, impart that knowledge and wisdom on other physicians in the future of medicine. So thank you.
No, absolutely, thank you. No.
And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.